Commander Vex-Nine clicked her mandibles in what passed for amusement among her species. The human male sat strapped to the interrogation chair, blood trickling from a cut above his left eyebrow, yet he still had the audacity to smile. Typical. These humans never knew when to quit, even when staring down the barrel of a plasma disruptor. "State your name and rank, human," she hissed, her forearms gesturing with practiced menace. The translator implant in her skull made her words sound properly threatening in his primitive language. "Captain Marcus Webb, Terran Defense Force," he replied, that infuriating grin never leaving his face. "Serial number 774-92 Alpha Zulu. That's all you're getting from me. Bug Lady." Bug Lady? Vex-Nine's chitinous exoskeleton shifted colors from deep purple to angry crimson. She'd conquered 17 star systems, reduced entire civilizations to ash, and this meat sack dared to call her Bug Lady. "Your species has quite the reputation for foolish bravery," she said, circling his chair like a predator sizing up prey. "Tell me, Captain Webb, do you know why we call your kind the lucky ones?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Because we're devastatingly handsome?" Despite herself, Vex-Nine let out a sound that might have been laughter if her vocal cords weren't designed for screeching orders across battlefields. "Because you stumble through the galaxy like drunken younglings, somehow avoiding extinction through sheer cosmic accident. Your technology is primitive. Your tactics are predictable. Your ships are held together with what you call duct tape and prayer." "Hey now," Marcus interrupted. "Duct tape is a perfectly valid engineering solution." "And yet," Vex-Nine continued, ignoring his quip, "here you sit, the last survivor of the battle for Kepler Station, your fleet destroyed, your allies scattered, your precious Earth now within our grasp, still smiling like an idiot." Marcus shrugged as much as his restraints allowed. "What can I say? I've got a naturally sunny disposition." Vex-Nine pulled her sidearm, a sleek weapon that could vaporize a human in 3 different ways depending on the setting. She pressed the cold metal against his temple, feeling his pulse quicken through the contact. Finally, some fear. "The location of your remaining fleet, Captain. Where are they hiding?" "Oh, you know how it is," Marcus said conversationally. "Somewhere between here and there. Could be anywhere, really. Space is pretty big. Your humor won't save you." She adjusted the weapon's setting to maximum pain. "This device can keep you conscious while slowly cooking your neurons. I've seen grown Thraxian warriors beg for death after just 5 minutes. "Sounds unpleasant," Marcus agreed. "But here's the thing about us humans. We're stubborn. Stupidly, recklessly, annoyingly stubborn." Vex-Nine had interrogated hundreds of species across the galaxy. The proud Altarians cracked within hours. The savage Korath lasted days. But humans were different. They had this maddening ability to find humor in the darkest situations, to crack jokes while their world burned around them. She'd studied their history during the long journey to Sol System. These creatures had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars fought with primitive chemical explosives. They'd stared into the abyss of nuclear annihilation and somehow pulled back from the brink, not through wisdom, but through sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up. "You realize your homeworld is doomed," she said, trying a different approach. "Our invasion fleet numbers in the thousands. Your pathetic defense force can't possibly stand against us." "Yeah, about that," Marcus said, and something in his tone made her mandibles twitch nervously. "You might want to double-check your math on that one." "What do you mean?" "Main. Well, see, you've been so focused on this whole terrifying alien overlord routine that you missed something pretty important." His grin widened. "We've been talking for what, 20 minutes now?" Vex-Nine's secondary eyes swiveled to check the chronometer. 23 minutes and 14 seconds, to be precise. So, my dear Commander Bug Lady, that's exactly how long it takes for a standard Terran emergency beacon to punch through your ship's jamming frequency." Her blood turned to ice water. Figuratively speaking, of course, since her species had green circulatory fluid. "Impossible. We disabled all communication equipment." "Oh, you got the obvious stuff," Marcus agreed cheerfully. "The radio, the quantum transmitter, even that backup communicator in my boot. Very thorough." But see, US humans were crafty little primates. We hide things in the strangest places. Vex-Nine's tactical display suddenly lit up with proximity alarms. Her communications officer, a nervous Zelthak named Prex, turned from his station with terror written across his scaled features. Commander. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Terran signatures. Come. How many? She demanded, her voice rising to a shriek. 17. No, 24, Commander. They're still coming. Through the viewports, space began to fill with the angular silhouettes of human warships, not the jury-rigged patrol boats she'd expected, but proper battlecruisers, their hulls scarred from countless engagements, weapon systems already powering up. You see, Marcus continued conversationally, that beacon wasn't just calling for help, it was sending targeting data. Distance, bearing, ship configuration, crew complement, weapon status, everything. My buddies need to blow you out of the sky. Vex-Nine pressed the disruptor harder against his skull. You're bluffing. Humans don't sacrifice their own. Oh, we absolutely do, Marcus said, his voice dropping to something darker, more serious. Or when it matters. When it's worth it. When some bug-eyed monster threatens our home, we'll throw ourselves into the fire just to watch you burn. The ship shuddered as the first human torpedoes found their mark. Emergency lighting bathed the interrogation chamber in hellish red, and somewhere in the distance, she could hear her crew screaming in their death throes, shields at 60%. Prex reported, all breaches on decks 7 through 12. Commander, we need to retreat. No, Vex-Nine snarled. We finish this, we make them pay. She spun back to Marcus, finger tightening on the trigger. Any last words, human? Marcus looked up at her, that insufferable smile returning full force. Yeah, he said, and his voice carried just a hint of that same darkness she'd heard before. Safety's on. For a split second, Vex-Nine felt confusion. Then she looked down at her weapon and saw the small indicator light that meant the firing mechanism was disabled. When had that happened? When had he? You see, Marcus said. And somehow his restraints were already loose, had been loose this entire time. The thing about us humans is that we're not just lucky. We're sneaky, vindictive, and really, really good at breaking things that don't belong to us. The weapon was in his hands before she could blink. Her own disruptor, now pointed at her thorax. Her forearms reached for backup weapons, but Marcus was already moving, faster than any human should be able to move. The beacon wasn't hidden in my gear, he said calmly as she fumbled for her sidearm. It was surgically implanted behind my left molar 3 months ago. Standard operating procedure for deep space missions. Amazing what you can fit in a tooth these days. You planned this, she gasped. Sweetheart, we've been planning this since the day your scouts showed up in our solar system. The weapon in his hands hummed with lethal energy. Did you really think we'd just roll over and play dead for you? Another massive impact shook the ship. This time the lights went out entirely, leaving them in the eerie glow of emergency phosphors. Bridge to Commander. Prex's voice crackled over the intercom, panic evident even through the universal translator. Primary engines offline. Life support failing. We're dead in space. Vex-Nine stared at the human holding her own weapon on her. This was impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak, disorganized, technologically inferior. They weren't supposed to be capable of this level of deception and tactical planning. How? She whispered. Marcus tilted his head, considering her question. You know what your problem is? You believed your own propaganda. You spent so much time telling yourselves how primitive we are that you forgot to actually pay attention to what we're capable of. He gestured around the dying ship with his free hand. Case in point, you think we're held together with duct tape and prayer. But you know what? That's exactly how we like it. Know why? Vex-Nine remained silent, all 4 eyes fixed on the weapon that should have been in her hands. Because when everything goes wrong, when your fancy tech fails and your perfect plans fall apart, you as primitive humans just keep on trucking. We jury-rig solutions on the fly. We adapt, we improvise. We overcome. The ship lurched again, and through the viewport, she could see human boarding pods attaching to the hull like metal parasites. Soon, Terran Marines would be cutting through her bulkheads, bringing their chaotic, unpredictable brand of warfare into her orderly vessel. "This isn't over," she hissed. "There are thousands more ships in our fleet, millions of warriors. You cannot stand against the might of the hegemony." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, about that. See, while you were busy interrogating me, my people weren't just sitting around picking their noses. They were busy being, well, human. Meaning? Meaning they were reverse engineering your technology from the wreckage of every ship you've thrown at us. Meaning they were learning your tactics, studying your weaknesses, figuring out exactly how to hurt you where it counts." The sound of cutting torches echoed through the corridor outside. Her own crew's weapons fire answered, but she could already tell it was a losing battle. Human voices, speaking in their rapid, clipped military dialect, grew closer by the second. "You want to know the real difference between humans and every other species you've conquered?" Marcus asked. "Every other race fights to avoid losing. Humans fight to win." "There's a difference. Enlighten me," she said, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. "When you're fighting not to lose, you play it safe. You follow established doctrine. You retreat when things get dicey." His smile turned predatory. "When you're fighting to win, you do whatever it takes. You take risks. You sacrifice pieces to gain advantages. You turn your weaknesses into strengths." The door to the interrogation chamber exploded inward in a shower of sparks and molten metal. Human soldiers poured through the breach, their powered armor making them look like mechanical demons. Their weapons swept the room with practiced efficiency, targeting systems painting Vex-Nine with dozens of crimson dots. "Stand down." The lead soldier barked, "Hands where we can see them." Vex-Nine slowly raised all four of her arms, her mandibles clicking in what might have been resignation or fury. It was hard to tell with her species. Marcus stood up, stretching muscles that had been cramped in the interrogation chair. He tossed the disruptor to one of the Marines, who caught it with casual expertise. "Captain Webb," the squad leader said, removing his helmet to reveal a scarred human face. "Good to see you in one piece, sir." "Thanks for the timely rescue, Sergeant Torres," Marcus replied. "Though I have to say you cut it pretty close there. Had to let you have your fun, sir. Besides, Intel wanted us to let the conversation play out. Learned quite a bit about their command structure and operational doctrine." Vex-Nine felt her heart sink. Even her capture had been part of their plan. These humans, these supposedly primitive creatures, had outmaneuvered her at every turn. "The ship is secured, sir," Torres continued. "Engineering reports they've isolated the quantum core. Technical teams are already downloading their databases." "Excellent." Marcus turned back to Vex-Nine, that maddening grin still in place. "Well, Commander, it's been enlightening, really. But I'm afraid this is where we part ways. You're going to execute me," she stated. "Execute you?" Marcus looked genuinely surprised. "Oh no, nothing like that. See, that's another difference between us and you. We don't kill prisoners. We're going to patch up your ship, give you enough supplies to make it home, and send you on your way." Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Why?" "Because we want you to deliver a message to your hegemony." His expression grew serious again. "Tell them that Earth isn't some backwater colony to be conquered on a whim. Tell them that humans aren't prey animals waiting to be slaughtered." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any scream. "Tell them that if they want a war with humanity, they'd better bring everything they've got, because we're not going down easy, and we're sure as hell not going down alone." The ship around them groaned as human engineering teams worked to restore basic life support. In the distance, she could hear her surviving crew members being processed and treated by human medics. Treated, not tortured or executed. It made no sense. "I don't understand your species," she admitted. Marcus laughed, and for the first time there was genuine warmth in the sound. "Join the club, sweetheart. Half the time we don't understand ourselves either. But that's what makes us dangerous." He headed for the door, then paused and looked back over his shoulder. "Oh, and Commander? Next time you want to interrogate a human, you might want to remember something." "What?" "What? We're not just the lucky ones. We're the ones who make our own luck." With that, he was gone, leaving Vex-Nine alone with her thoughts and the growing realization that her species had just picked a fight with something far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. 3 standard cycles later, Vex-Nine stood before the High Council of the Hegemony, her once pristine uniform now bearing the scorch marks of her encounter with humanity. The 12 most powerful beings in known space regarded her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disgust. Supreme Overlord Keth Prime, a massive crystalline entity whose very presence made the air hum with energy, spoke first. His voice resonated through the chamber like grinding stone. "Commander Vex-Nine, you returned to us in failure. Explain." She straightened her posture, ignoring the pain that still shot through her wounded limbs. "The humans are not what our intelligence reports suggested, Supreme Overlord. They possess capabilities we severely underestimated. One human defeated you." Council member Urix spat, her tentacles writhing with contempt. "It's a single member of a species we classify as barely above primitive savages." "With respect, Council member, Captain Webb was far from primitive. The entire engagement was orchestrated from the beginning. They allowed themselves to be captured to study our interrogation methods, learn our ship layouts, and identify our tactical weaknesses." Keth Prime's form pulsed a darker shade. "You're suggesting these humans outsmarted the greatest military minds of 17 conquered civilizations?" "I'm stating it as fact, Supreme Overlord." The chamber fell silent except for the subtle background hum of the station's massive power cores. Vex-Nine had served the hegemony for 40 cycles, fought in dozens of campaigns, but she'd never seen the High Council look genuinely concerned. "Show us," Keth Prime commanded. The holoprojector in the center of the chamber activated, displaying the tactical recordings from her ship's final battle. The Council watched in growing alarm as human vessels materialized from hyperspace with surgical precision, their formations adapting in real time to counter every defensive strategy the hegemony forces employed. "Pause there," Council member Zorth interjected, his mechanical voice clicking with analysis routines. "Replay the section where their lead cruiser executes that impossible maneuver." The hologram rewound, showing a human battlecruiser performing what should have been a fatal dive directly into concentrated plasma fire, only to emerge unscathed and deliver a devastating broadside that crippled 3 hegemony vessels simultaneously. "Their shields shouldn't have held," Urix muttered. "Our weapons are designed to penetrate any known defensive system." "Known being the operative term," Vex-Nine replied. "They've developed countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize our technology, not improve upon it, not copy it, but render it completely ineffective." Supreme Overlord Keth Prime dimmed to an ominous shade of amber. "Continue your report, Commander." "The human fleet didn't just defeat us, Supreme Overlord. They dissected us. Every tactical doctrine we employed, they had already prepared counters for. Every weapon system we deployed, they had already developed defenses against. It was as if they had been fighting us for years instead of mere months." "Impossible," Zorth declared. "Our first contact with their species was less than 1 standard cycle ago. That's what they wanted us to believe." Vex-Nine activated her personal data, displaying intelligence files that made several council members recoil. "While we were conducting our initial surveys of their system, they were conducting surveys of us. They've been tracking our scout ships, analyzing our technology, studying our communication patterns." The holographic display shifted to show intercepted human transmissions, their alien language translated into hegemony standard. The conversations revealed a level of tactical sophistication that made the Council's previous assessments look absurdly naive. "Listen to this," Vex-Nine said, highlighting one particular exchange. The recording played Captain Webb's voice, speaking to someone identified as Admiral Sarah Chen. "Hegemony patrol routes follow predictable patterns based on gravitational efficiency. They prioritize fuel conservation over tactical flexibility. Recommend positioning our ambush fleets along these coordinates." Another voice, Admiral Chen, responded, confirmed. "Intelligence also reports their shield harmonics are vulnerable to rotating frequency attacks. Engineering teams have already modified our torpedo warheads accordingly." Council member Urix's tentacles stopped writhing entirely. "They were preparing for war before we even declared it." More than that, Vex-Nine continued, they were preparing to win it. Every probe we sent into their system, every reconnaissance mission we conducted, they were learning from us, adapting, evolving their strategies. The hologram shifted again, this time showing human manufacturing facilities that had been repurposed from civilian production to military applications in a matter of weeks. Factories that once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons of war with frightening efficiency. Their industrial capacity is staggering, she reported. They can retool their entire manufacturing base faster than we can deploy reinforcements. While we were planning our invasion, they were building the fleet that would destroy us. Supreme Overlord Keth Prime's form darkened further. What are their current military capabilities? Unknown, but expanding rapidly. During my captivity, I observed human personnel discussing fleet movements involving hundreds of vessels. It's not patrol boats or converted civilian craft, but purpose-built warships designed specifically to kill us. Hundreds? Council Member Zorth's optical sensors focused with visible alarm. At minimum. Their Captain Webb made several references to multiple fleet formations, reserve forces, and something they called the big surprise waiting back home. I believe they possess significantly more military assets than our intelligence estimated. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavy with implications. The hegemony had built its empire on the principle of overwhelming technological superiority. They would arrive at a target system, demonstrate their advanced capabilities, and watch civilization surrender rather than face annihilation. But humans weren't surrendering. They were fighting back with innovations the hegemony couldn't predict or counter. There's something else, Vex-Nine added reluctantly, something that concerns me more than their military capabilities. Speak. Their psychology. Every species we've conquered follows predictable behavioral patterns. Fear leads to submission, submission leads to compliance. But humans, she paused, remembering Marcus Webb's unshakable confidence even while facing death. Fear makes them angry. Anger makes them dangerous, and dangerous humans are unpredictable humans. She activated another recording, this one from her ship's internal sensors during the boarding action. Human Marines moved through her vessel with ruthless efficiency, but they also showed mercy to wounded crew members, provided medical aid to prisoners, and treated captured personnel with a level of respect that baffled her. They follow rules of engagement even when they're winning, she explained. They could have executed every member of my crew, but instead they provided medical treatment and safe passage home. This isn't weakness, council members. This is confidence. They're so certain of their ultimate victory that they can afford to be merciful. Council member Erupts shuddered, her species having never encountered such a concept. Mercy from a position of strength. What kind of creatures are these humans? The kind that turn their weaknesses into advantages, Vex-Nine replied. Their technology appears primitive because they design it to be repairable under battlefield conditions. Their tactics seem chaotic because they adapt them in real time based on changing circumstances. Their military doctrine looks disorganized because they prioritize individual initiative over rigid command structures. She pulled up the final piece of intelligence, a recording of Captain Webb's parting words. His voice filled the chamber with casual confidence that sent chills through beings who had conquered star systems. Tell them that if they want a war with humanity, they'd better bring everything they've got, because we're not going down easy, and we're sure as hell not going down alone. The recording ended, leaving the High Council in uncomfortable silence. Recommendations? Supreme Overlord Keth Prime finally asked. Vex-Nine had spent the entire journey home considering this question. The traditional hegemony response would be to commit overwhelming force, crush the human resistance, and make an example that would deter other species from similar rebellion. But humans weren't other species. We have three options, she began. First, we can commit our entire military to crushing human resistance, and this would likely succeed, but at enormous cost. Based on their demonstrated capabilities, we would lose 60 to 70% of our fleet in the process. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The hegemony's power depended on maintaining overwhelming superiority over all potential rivals. Losing 70% of their military would leave them vulnerable to uprising from previously conquered worlds. Second option? That D, we can attempt to negotiate a peace settlement, establish territorial boundaries, trade agreements, mutual non-aggression pacts. Negotiate? Urix's voice dripped with disgust. The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. That brings me to the third option. Vex-Nine continued. We can classify humans as an equal threat and treat them accordingly. Full diplomatic recognition, military non-aggression treaty, possibly even alliance discussions. The chamber erupted in outraged clicks, hisses, and mechanical grinding sounds. The concept of treating any species as equals violated the fundamental principles upon which the hegemony was built. Supreme Overlord Keth Prime's form pulsed with barely contained fury. You suggest we abandon 40 cycles of expansion and conquest because of one encounter with a single human vessel? I suggest we recognize reality before it recognizes us out of existence, Vex-Nine replied steadily. Supreme Overlord, I've studied the tactical recordings extensively. The human fleet that rescued Captain Webb represented approximately 12% of their total military capacity. How can you possibly know that? Because they told me. Captain Webb made several references to the boys back home and what's waiting in reserve. Their Admiral Chen mentioned fleet rotations and deployment schedules that indicate massive reserves still in human space. She activated the holographic display one final time, showing her analysis of human industrial capacity, population distribution, and resource allocation. If they can field that kind of resistance with 12% of their forces, what happens when they commit 100%? What happens when they start building ships specifically designed to hunt and kill our vessels? The mathematical projections were sobering. Human industrial output, if fully committed to military production, could match hegemony capabilities within 2 standard cycles. Their adaptive technology development meant that any tactical advantage the hegemony possessed would be temporary at best. Furthermore, Vex-Nine continued, their approach to warfare suggests they've already war-gamed multiple scenarios. They're not just reacting to our invasion, they're implementing a predetermined strategy. Someone in human leadership saw this conflict coming and prepared accordingly. Council member Zorth's optical arrays flickered with rapid calculations. If your analysis is correct, Commander, then humanity represents an existential threat to hegemony expansion. Not expansion, Vex-Nine corrected. Existence. These humans don't fight defensive wars, Council members, they fight to win. And winning, to them, means eliminating the threat entirely. She thought back to Marcus Webb's easy confidence, his casual references to reverse engineering hegemony technology, that his obvious certainty that humanity would emerge victorious from any extended conflict. They're not trying to survive our invasion, she realized aloud. They're planning to invade us. The implications hit the High Council like a physical blow. For 40 cycles, the hegemony had been the predator, other species the prey. The possibility of role reversal was literally inconceivable to beings who had never faced genuine opposition. Supreme Overlord Keth Prime dimmed to the darkest shade Vex-Nine had ever seen. When he spoke, his voice carried undertones of something she'd never heard from him before, uncertainty. Your recommendation, Commander? Immediate ceasefire. Open diplomatic channels, and pray to whatever deities we still acknowledge that these humans are more interested in coexistence than conquest. And if they're not... Vex-Nine thought about Captain Webb's parting smile, about human efficiency in combat, about their casual treatment of captured enemies. She thought about a species that turned every disadvantage into an advantage, every weakness into strength. Then we'd better hope our 40 cycles of conquest have taught us how to be very, very good at surrender. The High Council sat in stunned silence, contemplating a future where the hegemony might not be the apex predator of the galaxy. Outside the chamber's viewports, stars that had once represented conquest now seemed to hold the promise of retaliation. Somewhere out there, humans were building ships, training soldiers, and planning their next move in a game where the stakes were nothing less than the future of galactic civilization. And for the first time in 40 cycles, the hegemony wasn't sure they were going to win.